Part 1. The Invisible Empire. I sit in the dark, holding a cold metal sphere. It contains my entire billion-dollar empire. It contains my life's work. But I cannot open it. I am the greatest computer genius in the world, yet a simple mechanical puzzle has completely defeated me. My arrogance destroyed everything I ever loved. My name is Adrian. I built a massive cybersecurity company from nothing. I created the most powerful digital walls in the world. I was young, incredibly wealthy, and absolutely confident. I truly believed that computer code was the only real power on Earth. I thought physical objects were weak and useless. I was preparing to launch my greatest creation. It was a perfect artificial intelligence security system named Aegis. Aegis was designed to protect the world's most important digital secrets. The global media called me the ultimate savior of the modern internet. I felt like an untouchable god living in the clouds. But I had one deeply embarrassing secret. My father, Elias, was a traditional, old-fashioned clockmaker. He worked in a small, dusty shop filled with gears and springs. He did not own a smartphone. He did not understand computers at all. I viewed him as a pathetic relic from a forgotten century. I hosted a massive, luxurious party to celebrate the upcoming launch of Aegis. The room was filled with famous billionaires and powerful politicians. My father attended the party wearing an old, simple suit. He looked completely out of place among the modern, wealthy elite. I tried to avoid him all night. During a quiet moment, my father tried to hand me a glass of champagne. His hands were shaking. He dropped the expensive glass onto the marble floor. It shattered loudly, drawing everyone's attention. I felt a sudden, burning wave of pure, toxic shame. I did not help him clean the mess. I called the security guards immediately. I pretended he was just a confused, wandering old man. I ordered them to escort him out of the building. I banished my own father back to his dirty clock shop. I wanted to protect my perfect, flawless image. I was completely, utterly blind. I returned to my wealthy guests with a fake, confident smile. I believed I had successfully removed the only weak link in my perfect life. I did not know that my digital empire was already in terrible danger. The real threat was completely invisible, hiding silently in the digital shadows. Part 2. The Midnight Thief. The night before the official Aegis launch, I slept peacefully in my luxury penthouse. Suddenly, my private emergency alarm began to scream. A massive security breach was happening at my company headquarters. I jumped out of bed, my heart hammering wildly against my ribs. I drove my sports car at reckless speeds. I arrived at the main server building in minutes. The local police were already waiting outside. We rushed down to the underground vault. This room contained the master hard drive for the Aegis project. It was the most secure room on the entire planet. I expected to see a sophisticated digital attack. The reality was incredibly strange and deeply confusing. The main computer network was perfectly secure. There were no digital viruses or hacked passwords. Instead, the heavy physical steel door of the vault was wide open. The advanced retinal scanner and the vein reader were completely bypassed and powered down. I walked into the cold room. The central server rack was completely empty. The master hard drive containing the Aegis code was gone. Someone had walked into the most secure digital fortress in the world and simply stolen the physical drive. It was an impossible, mind-bending crime. I demanded to see the security camera footage immediately. The video played on a large screen. A figure wearing a dark coat walked up to the secure vault door. The person did not use a computer or a hacking device. The person pulled out a small, traditional leather tool roll. The figure used tiny, delicate metal tools. They were the exact tools used to repair antique mechanical watches. The thief carefully manipulated the tiny physical gears inside the electronic locking mechanism. The advanced digital scanner was completely defeated by a few pieces of shaped metal. The door opened smoothly. The thief turned slightly toward the camera before entering the vault. The dark hood slipped back for just a second. I stopped breathing entirely. The face on the screen belonged to my father, Elias. The old, confused clockmaker had easily broken into my billion-dollar fortress. I ran back into the empty vault. I noticed a small object resting on the empty server tray. It was an old, silver pocket watch. The glass face was completely shattered. The mechanical hands were frozen. I stared at the broken watch, feeling a massive surge of pure, violent anger. Part 3. The Digital Blackout. I stood in the empty server room, shaking with absolute fury. I assumed the broken pocket watch was a cruel, mocking insult from my father. I thought he was laughing at my digital security. I believed he had stolen my life's work out of pure, bitter jealousy. Before I could even process the terrible betrayal, my phone began to ring endlessly. It was Julian, my best friend and the co-founder of the company. His voice was completely panicked. A massive, devastating cyber attack was hitting our main corporate servers. It was a highly advanced ransomware virus. I ran to the main control room. The digital screens were flashing angry red warning messages. The virus was moving with terrifying, unstoppable speed. It was encrypting every single file, every customer database, and every financial record. The entire company was burning down in a massive, invisible digital fire. Aegis was specifically designed to stop this exact type of attack. If the master hard drive was plugged into the server, the AI would have killed the virus instantly. But the drive was gone. My father had stolen our only shield. We were completely defenseless against the brutal digital assault. Julian grabbed my shoulders, shaking me violently. "We have to shut everything down," he screamed in panic. "They are demanding $50 million in cryptocurrency. If we don't pay, they will delete the company." I stared at the screens, completely paralyzed by the sudden, overwhelming disaster. The ransomware timer hit 0. The screens turned completely black. The hackers executed their threat perfectly. Every single piece of data was permanently erased. The company was completely destroyed in less than 10 minutes. Billions of dollars in shareholder value vanished into thin air. We were absolutely ruined. Julian collapsed into a chair, crying loudly. "We have to declare bankruptcy immediately, Adrian," he whispered, wiping his tears. "The investors will sue us. The government will arrest us. We have to sign the bankruptcy papers today to protect ourselves from going to federal prison." I was completely numb. My perfect, golden empire was reduced to digital ashes. I signed the heavy legal documents, giving up control of the company. Julian promised to handle the angry lawyers and the government investigators. He told me to go home and rest. I felt entirely empty and broken. I walked out of the dark building into the bright morning sun. I had lost my wealth, my reputation, and my future in a single night. And the person responsible for this nightmare was my own flesh and blood. A cold, dark hatred for my father began to grow in my soul. Part 4. The Media Verdict. The news of the massive cyber attack spread across the world in seconds. My face was on every television screen and newspaper cover. The media called it the greatest technological failure in modern history. I was transformed from a brilliant genius into a reckless, arrogant fool overnight. I organized a massive, global press conference the next morning. Hundreds of reporters and bright cameras filled the room. I stood at the podium, my heart filled with cold, bitter venom. I refused to accept the blame for the disaster. I needed the world to know the truth about the theft. I displayed the security camera footage on a giant screen. I paused the video perfectly on my father's face. The man who destroyed this company is Elias, my own father. I announced to the shocked crowd. He stole the Aegis master drive. He is a pathetic, greedy industrial spy. I told the reporters that my father was jealous of my incredible success. I claimed he stole the drive to sell it to our biggest competitors. He betrayed his own blood for money. I shouted angrily into the microphones. He caused the attack by removing our only defense system. I pulled a thick stack of documents from my jacket. I am personally offering a $1 million reward. I declared loudly. The reward goes to anyone who can provide information leading to the arrest of this dangerous criminal. Find him and bring him to justice. I want him in prison. By offering the massive reward, I painted a huge target on my father's back. I knew the criminal underworld, dangerous bounty hunters, and desperate people would hunt him down like a wild animal. I did not care if he suffered. I wanted him to feel the same total destruction I felt. A few hours later, the local police called my phone. They had found my father's old, rusty pickup truck. I drove to a dark, quiet road near the edge of the city. The truck was completely crushed against a massive concrete wall. The windshield was shattered into tiny pieces. I looked inside the ruined truck. A large pool of dark, sticky blood covered the driver's seat. But my father was not inside the vehicle. The police searched the surrounding woods, but found absolutely nothing. He had completely vanished into the shadows. The lead detective looked at me with sympathy. He probably survived the crash and ran away to hide the stolen drive. The detective suggested quietly. I nodded slowly, a cruel smile forming on my lips. He was running with $1 million target on his back. His miserable life was effectively over. Part 5. The Trail of Betrayal. I locked myself inside my dark apartment for a week. I had absolutely no money and no friends. I spent my days staring at an old, cheap laptop. I was completely obsessed with the ransomware attack. I needed to understand how the hackers broke through my standard security walls so quickly. I managed to download a tiny, broken fragment of the virus code from a backup server. I analyzed the digital fragment for days, reading thousands of lines of complex text. My brilliant mind slowly began to recognize a very strange, familiar pattern hidden deep inside the malicious code. The virus was not written by Russian hackers or Chinese state agents. The code used a very specific, unique structural rhythm. It used custom algorithms that were completely exclusive to my own company. The terrifying truth slowly emerged from the screen. The attack was launched from inside my own house. I traced the digital footprint backward through the internet. I bypassed proxy servers and fake IP addresses. The trail did not lead to a foreign country. The digital path led directly to a highly secure, private server located in the wealthiest neighborhood of the city. I checked the public property records for that specific address. My blood instantly turned to freezing ice. The mansion belonged to Julian, my best friend and co-founder. The man who cried with me in the server room. The man who convinced me to sign the bankruptcy papers so quickly. The entire disaster was a massive, carefully planned inside job. Julian had written the virus himself. He wanted to destroy the company to steal the core assets during the chaotic bankruptcy process. He wanted to take the Aegis system and sell it secretly to international weapons dealers for billions of dollars. Julian knew Aegis would stop his virus. He needed the master drive removed before he launched the attack. I sat in the dark, my mind spinning wildly. If Julian was the criminal mastermind, why did my father steal the drive? Did my father actually work for Julian? The puzzle pieces did not fit together properly. My father hated modern technology. He would never cooperate with a digital thief like Julian. There was a massive, missing piece of the story. I needed to confront the traitor directly. I needed to find out exactly what happened that night. I dressed in dark clothes and grabbed a heavy steel flashlight. I was going to break into Julian's massive mansion. I was going to find my father and the stolen drive. I was ready to destroy the man who ruined my entire life with a smile on his face. Part 6. The Timebox. I arrived at Julian's massive, gated mansion in the middle of the night. I bypassed the electronic security system easily. Digital locks were simple toys for my mind. I crept quietly through the dark, expensive hallways. I heard angry, violent shouting coming from a large office at the end of the hall. I hid in the dark shadows near the open door. Julian was pacing furiously behind his desk. 3 dangerous, heavily armed men stood nervously in the center of the room. "I told you to find that old man," Julian screamed, throwing a crystal glass against the wall. "We tracked his truck, boss," a large man replied defensively. "We chased him to the bridge, but he crashed on purpose. By the time we got to the truck, the police were arriving. We had to run away. The old man disappeared with the package. We couldn't find the drive. The super twist hit me with the force of an earthquake. Julian did not have the Aegis drive. My father did not sell the drive to him. My father did not steal the drive for money. My father stole the drive to keep it away from Julian." Julian grabbed his hair in pure frustration. "He ruined everything," Julian yelled. "The old idiot was fixing the antique clock in my office last week. He must have heard me talking to the buyers on the phone. He knew I was going to hack the servers and steal the code." The terrifying, beautiful truth finally clicked into place. My father heard the evil plan. As a simple clockmaker, he did not know how to write computer code to stop a hacker. But he understood one perfect, absolute rule of physical security. Data cannot be hacked if it is completely disconnected. My father broke into the server room to rescue my life's work. He removed the physical drive to save it from Julian's digital fire. But how did he plan to protect it from Julian's armed thugs? Julian played an audio message from one of his hired hackers on his computer. "Sir, we found blueprints in the old clock shop." The hacker's voice echoed in the room. The old man didn't just hide the drive. He welded it inside a solid titanium sphere. He built a complex, mechanical puzzle around it. He built a Clockwork Vault. The hacker sounded completely terrified. The vault has tens of thousands of interlocking gears. The hacker explained. It is a masterpiece of mechanical engineering. If we try to force it open with modern tools, we will trigger a violent trap. The drive is perfectly, physically locked away from the entire world. Part 7. The Gearwork Chase. I stood in the dark hallway, listening to Julian's desperate thugs explain their failure. The story of my father's incredible bravery slowly unfolded. He did not run away like a coward. He executed a brilliant, dangerous tactical maneuver to protect me from Julian's violent assassins. The thugs confessed that they waited outside my penthouse on the night of the theft. Julian had ordered them to kidnap me and force me to hand over the Aegis code. But my father arrived first. He broke into the server room and triggered the alarm intentionally. He wanted the police to arrive at the building to keep me safe. Then, my father drove his old truck wildly through the city streets. He deliberately attracted the attention of Julian's assassins. He led the dangerous men far away from my apartment, drawing the deadly threat entirely upon himself. The old man drove like a maniac. The large thug explained nervously to Julian. We chased him onto the high bridge. We were preparing to shoot his tires and grab the titanium sphere. We had him completely trapped against the concrete barrier. But my father refused to let them win. He knew if he stopped the truck, they would murder him and take my life's work. He saw a massive, heavy delivery truck driving in the opposite lane. My father made a split-second, incredibly heroic decision to save the digital code. He didn't hit the brakes. The thug shouted in disbelief. He turned his steering wheel hard. He intentionally crashed his own truck head-on into the concrete wall and the delivery truck. The crash was massive. It caused a huge traffic jam and drew dozens of witnesses immediately. My father sacrificed his own body to create a massive, public spectacle. He knew the assassins could not shoot him or steal the heavy titanium sphere in front of a large crowd of shocked witnesses. He used his own flesh and blood to build an impenetrable physical shield around the drive. We had to abandon the mission and run. The thug finished quietly. The police and the ambulances were already arriving. The old man saved the package by destroying himself. He is a crazy, fearless bastard. Julian screamed in rage, kicking his heavy wooden desk violently. I backed away into the shadows, tears streaming down my face. I had publicly cursed my father's name. I had called him a greedy traitor on national television. I had placed a bounty on his head. While I was acting like an arrogant, ungrateful child, he was bleeding in a crushed truck to protect my dream. Part 8. The White Hospital. I ran out of Julian's mansion and jumped into my car. I drove frantically to the only public hospital located near the site of the bridge crash. I ignored the speed limits, my heart breaking into a million tiny pieces. I had to find him. I had to beg for his forgiveness. I rushed into the bright, sterile emergency room. I demanded to see the unidentified victim from the bridge accident. The tired nurses saw the sheer panic in my eyes and directed me to the intensive care unit on the top floor. I ran down the quiet, white hallway. I found him in a small, quiet room filled with loud medical machines. My father was lying on a narrow bed. His head was wrapped in thick white bandages. Heavy plastic tubes were connected to his throat and his arms. He looked incredibly small and fragile. I fell to my knees beside his bed, grasping his cold, rough hand. I sobbed uncontrollably, pressing his fingers against my wet face. "I am so sorry, Dad." I cried desperately. "I know the truth now. I know what you did. You are a hero. Please wake up." A senior doctor walked into the room slowly. He looked at me with deep, profound sadness. "I am sorry, Adrian," the doctor whispered gently. "The physical trauma from the crash was far too severe. He suffered massive, irreversible brain damage. He is in a permanent vegetative state." The words crushed my soul completely. "He will never wake up." The doctor continued softly. "His brain is permanently asleep. He cannot hear you. He cannot feel anything anymore. He is gone." My father was trapped forever in a silent, dark world because he tried to save my life. A police officer arrived at the hospital room a few minutes later. "Are you the family member?" the officer asked quietly. "We found a personal item in his ruined truck. He was holding it very tightly when we pulled him from the wreckage. We thought you should have it." The officer handed me a heavy, dark canvas bag. I opened the bag with trembling hands. Inside was a perfect, flawless sphere made of solid titanium. It was roughly the size of a melon. The metal was stained with patches of dried, dark blood. My father's blood. I held the heavy sphere carefully. I pressed my ear against the cold metal surface. I could hear a faint, beautiful sound coming from deep inside the titanium shell. Tick, tick, tick. Thousands of tiny mechanical gears were moving perfectly together. The Clockwork Vault was alive. Part 9. The Immortal Cipher. I took the titanium sphere back to my dark apartment. I immediately sent all the evidence of Julian's crimes to the federal police. Julian was arrested in his mansion that same night, facing decades in federal prison. The traitor was finally defeated. But my real nightmare was just beginning. I placed the heavy sphere on my desk. The Aegis code, my billion-dollar empire, was locked safely inside. I just needed to open it. I called the greatest engineers, locksmiths, and security experts in the world. I offered them massive amounts of money to break into the Clockwork Vault. They all failed completely. The titanium shell was incredibly thick. We tried to use advanced X-ray machines to see the gears inside, but the metal blocked the radiation perfectly. The sphere had no digital interface. There was no keyboard, no screen, and no place to plug in a computer cable. A master locksmith tried to use a tiny laser drill to create a hole in the surface. As soon as the laser touched the metal, a terrifying warning sound echoed from inside the sphere. The locksmith stopped immediately, wiping sweat from his pale forehead. He realized the fatal, brilliant trap. Your father built a classic, deadly booby trap inside the vault. The locksmith whispered in awe. If we try to cut, drill, or force the metal open, a glass vial will shatter inside. The vial contains highly concentrated hydrofluoric acid. The acid will instantly melt the hard drive into useless sludge. The super, agonizing twist finally paralyzed my brilliant mind. There was only one safe way to open the sphere. The surface of the vault was covered in small, sensitive metal dials. The dials had to be turned in a very specific, perfectly timed rhythm. The rhythm required the delicate, sensitive touch of a master clockmaker. It required a person who could feel the tiny vibrations of the gears and listen to the subtle clicks of the metal teeth. It required a lifetime of patient, mechanical skill. It required my father. My father was the only person on Earth who knew the mechanical cipher. I was a digital genius, capable of hacking any computer network in the world. But my digital skills were absolutely useless against this physical masterpiece. I was completely, utterly defeated by the ancient, mechanical art I had openly despised. I sat alone in my room, staring at the flawless titanium sphere. I had billions of dollars waiting inside, but the door was permanently locked. My father built a fortress that no modern technology could ever breach. The final, immortal cipher was locked away forever inside his sleeping brain. Part 10. The Sound of Regret. I finally understood the message my father left in the server room. The broken silver pocket watch was not a cruel insult. I looked at the police evidence photos of the watch. The broken hands were permanently frozen at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning was the exact minute Julian launched the devastating ransomware attack. My father left the broken watch to warn me. He used his mechanical language to tell me that time was running out. But I was too arrogant and too blind to read his desperate message. I never rebuilt my cybersecurity company. The digital world felt completely cold and meaningless to me now. I walked away from the computers, the shiny screens, and the fast, modern internet. I sold my luxury penthouse and my expensive sports cars. I completely changed my entire life. I moved into my father's old, dusty clock shop. I kept the wooden tables and the tiny metal tools exactly where he left them. I spend my days reading his old, worn notebooks. I am trying to learn the delicate, patient art of building mechanical watches. My hands are clumsy and impatient. I often drop the tiny gears and break the fragile springs. I am a terrible clockmaker, but I refuse to stop trying. I sit at his wooden desk for hours, trying to understand the physical, mechanical world he loved so deeply. Every evening, I carry the heavy titanium sphere to the hospital. I sit in the quiet, white room next to my father's bed. He remains in a deep, peaceful sleep. The machines beep softly, measuring his slow heartbeat. I hold his warm hand and tell him about my day at the shop. I place the Clockwork Vault on his lap. I place my fingers on the cold metal dials. I close my eyes and listen closely to the faint, steady ticking sound inside the sphere. I try to feel the vibrations. I try to find the magical rhythm that will open the lock. I know I will never solve the puzzle. The vault will remain permanently sealed. But I keep turning the dials anyway. I listen to the mechanical heartbeat of the titanium sphere, and I listen to the quiet breathing of the greatest man I ever knew. I lost my digital empire, but I finally found my father. I sit in the quiet hospital room, a failed genius holding a locked box of regrets. I trade my billion-dollar dreams for a few quiet moments of peace, forever turning the silent, unforgiving wheels of time.